subtopic is Ukrainian investable assets universe, and we will speak about Ukraine's securities market, where it is heading and what shall be done to make it more functional and active. Before I introduce the moderator of this panel and the panelists, we suggest to answer the question, we would like to ask for your opinion on the most needed reform to boost the local securities market. So here are the proposed answers. A, introduction of the second pillar of the pension system. B, capital markets reform in line with the EU and international norms. C, change of the government borrowing policy. And D, reforms to improve business climate and stimulate structural transformation of the economy. So the majority of the audience believes that the most needed reform to boost the local securities market, or reforms actually, shall be focused on improving the business climate and stimulate structural transformation of the economy. We will see how this will change, if it will change after our second panel discussion. I invite the moderator of this panel, Steve Wallace, the Business Development Director of the CFA Institute. Please welcome.
Great. Thanks again. Well, thanks again to CFA Society Ukraine, and thank you as well to our panelists ahead of this discussion this morning. So first I'd just like to introduce our panel. So first I have is Mura, who is chairman of MetLife in Ukraine and has over 14 years of experience at senior level in relation to developing key sales channels in Central Europe and the strategic development of MetLife in Ukraine. Prior to this, he worked for a decade at one of the largest FMCG companies in Poland. Our next panelist is Timur Kromer, who is head of the National Securities and Stock Markets Commission and covers regulation activities of the NSSMC's regional offices, hiring and staff issues and representation of the regulator. Although as chairman, Timur's responsibilities include responsibility for strategic plans on stock market development, coordination and designing of legislative and regulatory activities, FRS implementation, and more. So a busy man by this aspect. And next is Grigory Ovcharenko, who is director, head of local asset management at ICU, and is responsible for the local asset management business, including management of the pension fund in cooperation with institutional investors. Grigory is a member of the board of the Ukrainian Association of Investment Business and chairs its public fund section. And prior to his time at ICU, he was CEO of OTP Capital and a board member of OTP. And last but not least, our final panelist is Dan Rappaport Capital, who originally from Riga, Latvia, has over 22 years experience in Russia, where he got a track record as an investment banker, portfolio manager and financial advisor to international institutional investors. Interesting point, he was also a policy advisor to both Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush's presidential campaigns in 2012 and 2016 respectively. So I think he might be a popular person at lunch if you want to talk to you about the Trump recent election. He's now based in Kiev and is an investment advisor to a top US-based private equity firm. So thank you, gentlemen, and like the previous panel, we can go back to the vote and we can ask each one of you the same questions for the vote, which is, in your opinion, what's the most needed reform to boost the local securities market, bonds and stocks? Is it the introduction of second pillar of the pension system, capital markets reform, bringing it in line with EU IOSCO norms, change of government borrowing policy, or reforms that would give a boost to business climate and underlying real economy. And as before, I guess you could say, well, a piece of all of those is necessary. But if you're a prioritised, which one would you think? If I could start with you.
Good morning, good day, everybody. Remembering the things, I definitely saw point B and point D as very, very critical. In terms of timing, in terms of sequencing, D would definitely have to somehow come before D, if I have to choose one.
No, Steve, I won't make you happy by answering you straightforwardly. I think it will be politically incorrect because we, as part of the regulatory structure, and the Securities Commission is trying to regain its position in oversight of the financial sector. We actually stressed our reforms in actually ABC. ABC, I mean, D equal A plus B plus C, and many other questions and issues. But I'm glad that ABC represents the key main areas of our focus at the moment. Yeah. So I'll talk more about this, but this is my answer.
Actually, I would agree with Tim Moore because all of the issues are really important, and I would probably refer to the kitchen and cooking probably. And I would say if the Porsche is good enough, it's going to see what is the additives inside and all together. That's automated environments, which is investment climate. So I would move for all of that, but especially for the last one.
I would like to say on this topic. First of all, it seems to me like you have a sick patient and you're trying to find out which color Band-Aid to apply to his wounds. Okay, the country has been stagnating for the last 20 years. Those 20 years were lost. I always use Poland as an example of the path that Ukraine should take, because an interesting statistic I read recently was in 1990, the nominal GDP in Poland was the same as Ukrainian. What happened since 1990, Ukraine dropped from about 4,000 to 2,000 and change per person, and Poland went from 4,000 to 15,500. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. You see a path that works. And the thing is, I am here because I really think and believe that Ukraine can repeat this path, but not in 25 years, hopefully in 10. Now, I also view the beginning of the new Ukraine as happening after Maidan, when there was a desire for the country to live under rule of law, democracy, property rights, and human rights. And I think that all the things that happened up to 2014, we can actually discount with the investors, because we're hopefully looking at a new country. Because I'm looking at the IPO placements that were done, and there's only one of them that was ever successful. And I know that most foreign investors got burned in this country. So I really think that the stock market at this point is not something that's going to develop anytime soon. And most of the investors will come in, they'll do private equity strategic deals, like which is what I'm here to do.
And we'll come on to that a bit later and ask a bit more about those other assets and other access points. So if I could ask the first discussion question really to you, Timur, so I'll talk first. Again, going back to Dan's point, actually saying that the Ukrainian capital market remains at a lower point in historical activity, and equity market virtually non-existent in terms of investable companies, low daily turnover, and again, in terms of when the last Ukrainian IPO or market bond issuance was. So while the question, I guess, seems a little bit controversial, is it a case that the market is repairable at all, or should it be rebuilt? So if we think of it as a house, can it be refurbished, or does it need to be rebuilt?
It's, to summarize, it's definitely a failed market. It's a failed public market, which, as my colleagues and panelists said, it's mostly private. It's segmented private markets in every niche, form, and class, by asset, by market participants. It's very fragmented capital market, by which just equity market doesn't exist. It cannot exist as a public good. Yeah. It's you know, self-serving instrument for different types of deals. So to answer your question, it's a failed market, and it's definitely will require significant reshuffling, and it is very painful, and I think the pain will aggravate to continue the wounds. Analogy, I think the bones have grown. I mean, we had a great change in the 90s, going from the Soviet economy into the you know, potential capitalist economy. We didn't get to that point. So the broken economy healed in its own way, which didn't provide us the benefits of proper financial you know, activity. So we need to break that. You know, and if you had experience with going to the doctor after you broke a bone, when he has to break it again. I had it. Well, this is painful. So unfortunately, we're going through this, and it seems that Ukraine has enormous potential, and we can definitely tap it in if we start changing the mindset. I think the neighborhood, the conference is totally the appropriate one, because the change needs to take place in the heads, not in the outside.
Actually, on to you, Dan, if I could bring the same sort of question to you, I guess given your experience in other markets and where you've come from, being born in Latvia and spent time in Russia, of course, in France, UK, and the US. What's your view, I guess, on the market and how repairable is it?
I'm not a specialist on regulations, so I would not doubt what my colleague is saying anyway, but it seems to me like if you already have an infrastructure, you are lacking two things. If you have the infrastructure, you need investors, and you need companies. Investors can be attracted if the companies provide decent return on their capital, if they have honest financials, if there's no under-table dealings going on. And I think that the investors can be attracted in two ways. One is, and I know I'm here for 10 days, so I don't know a lot of stuff, but you can utilize the pension funds and allow the pensioners to invest their funds in these companies. But again, these have to be real companies. They can't be MMM, like the big scam they had in Russia. It has to be real companies that provide real reports. As far as Western investors, I mean, here, there's one thing that's missing. We discussed that briefly today. No matter how good the deals are, if you cannot access the foreign institutional capital, they cannot come. And I know that there are several very good local investment banks. However, in my experience, having worked for local investment banks, the first time investors in the country, they will want to come with a Western bank, and it's called CYA, cover your, okay. So at this point, there's nobody here, and somebody has to come here. And what we saw Credit Suisse in 1993 when they came to Russia, they immediately got the lion's share of the business, and they immediately opened up their client base who had this risk profile to invest in Russian assets. And until UBS came later and bought Brunswick, I mean, they were the #1 player. And actually, there was a year where Credit Suisse Moscow made more money than the entire Credit Suisse operation. So if there's any representatives of Western investment banks, now is the time to come here and to look at this country and basically to start packaging and marketing these investment ideas.
And then, what's your agree? Do you think, going on from Dan's comments certainly about Western investment banks maybe entering the local market and as a way of attracting foreign investors, investment flows into the Ukraine market, given your experiences in the asset management side of business locally, do you think that's a necessary piece?
I see a lot of interest. Surprisingly, I see a lot of interest because, as again I said, after 2014, people that follow events, they see this as a new country that's going to try a different path. And granted, so far, in our opinion, the reforms have not moved forward as quickly as the world would like. But the country, in my opinion, is definitely on the right path. So the question is, how much political will we have to continue on this path and how much you can speed up? So yes, there is a demand for Ukrainian assets. The problem is nobody knows how to buy Ukrainian assets. If you are a real estate fund manager in London, how will you buy a shopping center that's going to yield you a much higher rate of return than you would get anywhere else in the world? If you are, an agricultural company, I mean, it's setting up an office here, coming here, bringing the people. It's a significantly expensive and time-consuming process. So somebody needs to be here to represent the interests of these people.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Belong. So you just got to be
That was good. Thank you very much. And Gregory, in terms of your comments on that, in terms of I guess rebuilding the capital market, but also probably moving on to the next sort of question in terms of the future supply. I guess given it's relatively constrained at the moment, in terms of estimating the supply of various types of securities on the Ukrainian local market. Now in the midterm, do you expect there to be greater supply going forward? And if so, what sort of things do you need to happen to increase supply of various securities on the local market? Following on from the structural issues.
If you don't mind, I'd like to switch on the presentation just to give you just a list of the next one. Okay, let's just look on the left side. It's just based on the latest research made by the company, which is indicated. So what we see, that's major share in assets allocation of the, I would say, largest countries where the pension assets are the, I would say, most representative in the world. So what we see that OECD research revealed for the last 10 years that in terms of the real return, that there is a link, positive link with the equity. That's a simple answer. So let's look on the right. What we see that we are missing the source of the answering the question, where the source, how to beat the inflation. Because when we're talking on the, I would say, the pension assets, institutional investors, we need to see where the market is. And we can find a lot of reasons why this market is absent, I would say. We do have infrastructure for that, but actually we need to come back to the, I would say, the simple basic issues. We don't have trust. Let's look at the latest declarations revealed. So what we see in terms of the answers of the politicians, we see a clear message. We do not believe to the institution, financial institutions. So that's the answer. We do not believe each other. I'm not talking about the institutions, and that the basic story, we need to develop corporate government. We need to see clear rules. We need to establish, I would say, the clear rules for the business, to do that business, and that's the answer. So we need supply of the injection of the capital. Yes, we need to develop internal investor first. How we can attract the foreign investor if we cannot do that ourselves? Let's ask the colleague, do we believe to the, I would say, financial institution, do we trust them? The answer in most cases is not. How we can persuade foreign investor to invest in these institutions? And this is the question, how to do that.
So actually, just bringing in that point again, that Dan made that in terms of having investment banks from outside Ukraine as sort of a brand name, if you like, entering the market. Do you think we need external players coming into the market to push these corporate governance initiatives? What do you think is going to be, I guess, the catalyst for that to start, for that trust to start based on corporate governance, based on conduct of business rules? What sort of catalyst do you think it needs? I mean, should it already be in place?
We need success stories. We need them. We badly need success stories. we're just raising issues. We're going to be first. Okay, let's privatize Opis there or Obel Neves, but let's develop success story to be presented. We are in business here. There are many success stories, but we need to publicly talk of them. We need to develop, I would say, the way of communication inside and outside. For that, we need to develop the stories.
I just wanted to quickly react, because I fully agree. I think what is really needed is the government and the authorities, first of all, to have a vision of what's, where Ukraine wants to go, and then turn this vision into the strategy, which then will be implemented into a number of actions, like, first of all, legislation. A lot could be done in this field: corporate governance, accounting standards, investor protection, and we could extend the list long and long. And then I think I can speak from the practical point of view. When we see this happening, definitely, the propensity to invest more, become more, let's say, open to Ukraine will definitely increase.
Actually, I'd just like to continue on this point to onto the next question we had in terms of life insurance companies, in terms of being one of the few, I guess, domestic investors who invest locally, although mainly in state bonds. So based on that, do you think actually the local institutional investment market could become a driver of that recovery? So we've talked about earlier this morning about foreign direct investment flows, and we've talked about foreign institutions, foreign investors, but what about local institutional investors? What can they do to help spur this themselves?
I think that local investors are driven by the same rules, but the same requirements as international investors. And I perceive ourselves, our company, MetLife Ukraine, as a local investor. And I think I don't think we should be the driver. We are on the demand side of the market. If there are instruments available, we can see how we can utilize them to achieve our objectives. As of today, I would say, given the type of business we are running, traditional life insurance, long-term saving, guaranteed minimum returns, we have everything we need. We need for this, anywhere in the world, we would use government bonds, and we have them. But of course, if you want the market to develop, if you want the market to grow, we would need to, or the key driver, for example, from the life insurance point of view, is so-called unit-linked product. Not yet available in Ukraine, yet foreseen in the new legislation, which, by the way, was also new 2 years ago or the expected legislation, when it was also expected when I came 2 years ago. That also indicates what the pace of reform. So I wouldn't differentiate really between local investor and international investor. Investors are always the same. They want to know what risk they are taking, and they don't know. They want to know what rules they are playing.
And then about the success stories, about people inside Ukraine and outside Ukraine knowing about what success stories there are. In terms of, if you're expecting to drive growth, or you're thinking about maybe helping spur some of the growth from a local source. First, I mean, if you're talking about stuff, you need some awareness out there. You need something in terms of, again, vision, strategy from the government in terms of what you can do, but also some success stories about what's actually happening, no matter how small they are, at least that it's an incremental lead on to growth.
Can we switch on the page 3?
Yeah, did you see these questions beforehand?
Actually, we had the first question too. We believe that the second pillar reform will be a driving factor. Yes, I do. Yes, anyone here. But let's look at the figures. Let's look at the figures where we are. So, can you find Ukraine there? Close to Pakistan and Albania? So, that's the pensions assessed to the GDP. If we combine all together with institutional investors like insurance company, it's going to be more or less the same. Far below 1% of GDP. This is the problem. Yes, we need to develop local internal investor in terms of the size, in terms of the business, I would say, rules and transparency. But the problem is that, yes, if we're gonna do that, it will take years to make that as the driving factor for the capital market. We saw that like a decade ago, that we need injection of the capital outside. Yeah, that's gonna be like an infrastructural project to speed up, to accelerate that, I would say, the business. But it's not gonna be the main factor to develop the capital market. We need cumulative efforts for that. So if we have threefold, I would say, pace, in the 5 years, we're still gonna be far below, I would say, countries like nearby, close to us. So, yes, we need to develop first the environment for us, that's clear. And I would say regulated do a lot in this direction in terms of an environment. But we need demand. That's what we need demand. And we're not going to establish that only ourselves as an institutional investors, and that's a problem. We need success stories. We have them a lot, more probably not publicly, not announced. Because usually we bias to discuss negative stories, that's clear. And that's what we discuss all together every time. We have a lot of positives. We need to keep going and focus on that's the story.
Okay, and if I actually go on this, looking at pension reform, and Dan, I'm going to come on to you on to the next question, because that's right where we're at, I think. But just looking at pension reform, the launch of Pillar 2, I guess it's a reform that some have been saying that's long overdue, but also raises a question of, is now the right time to do it? Given the state of the local capital markets, and most of the additional pension savings going towards government bonds, how urgent is the need for this pension reform, and do you think it's the right time to launch Pillar 2 given the market conditions? And I guess given the fact that there's never a right time to do anything, it's always a matter of change. But in terms of your opinion, in terms of the timing of Pillar 2 pension reform, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, once again, I'm answering not as straightforward. Like, I've been in an investment banking for the last year and a half. I feel myself like a plumber. So you guys are looking for good stories. I have so many bad ones that I'm not happy to share, but I'm very limited in the power. And when the house is flooded, who is to blame? The plumber. Not the guys, not the foreign investors, local, they all live in one house. And in my previous career, when I was working in initial finance, and we issued first Eurobonds in the 90s, and then we've been doing all the restructurings and all that. You see that foreign investors are also, sorry about the analogy, but different animals. You have vulture funds, you have private equity funds, you have different classes of investors that are after different reward. So every time we had a great upside in Ukraine, we had short-term investors coming in. They provide capital and they leave if there's something wrong. It's never been sustainable growth. So going to my plumbing that, we need to develop and establish a sustainable foundation that will provide us with continuous growth opportunities. And the best stories, I think, they need to be analyzed and systemically resolved. We cannot put the good money after the bad money. And unfortunately, this is what's, we're also at the risk of happening. And it's my personal rule of thumb. It's in the past 20 years, every 5 years we had a crisis. Every 5 years. Sometimes it's been related to the international, reasons, but in many cases it's been multiplied by inefficiencies and problems in Ukraine. So, is the pension reform will help? Well, it's definitely something that we need, and I agree with Grigori that we do need demand side, yes. But look, what we see now is, even with these few pension funds, the potential by one investment manager to buy trash securities is still obvious. We see that people are, buying and selling all the time. What are they doing? We're chasing the dogs. Why don't we just kick the dogs out? Because it's much harder for us to go after the funds that were lost. It's not about the law enforcement anymore. Yes, they need to work hard, but the prevention, that's what's going to contribute to development of the market. Prevention of the bad habits, of bad practice. We only have a few market participants that are really doing business. So why do we suck up to the others who spoil the market and use it in different terms? Why should we be quiet? And as I think, to the majority of people here who spend their years studying, the finance, and now what, you guys, you've been laughed at by the people who are using these instruments to do the other things. I think, we need to have some line-downs here as well, the financial line-downs, and really get into the real fight. So, pension reform is essential. But sorry, we're not ready for this. As soon as the equity and capital will start pumping in, I'm telling you, with the rules like this, with no responsibility, we're going to have same as what's happening with the banks. It's difficult to bring shareholders to the responsibility. We're going to have the same problem with the pension funds. Because there will be insider dealings, there will be self-funding, and once again, many, a myriad of other things that are, I can go on for forever. I know your problems, guys. In the last year and a half, it's such an iceberg of problems that we have. So if we don't establish the rules as a set in the credible markets and the markets that we have in Europe and globally, basically. Sorry, we are, in terms of the regulation, we're 137 out of 138 countries. Yemen is behind us. So we have no influence on the financial sector at all. So we can pretend that private equity investors can come in and mastermind, avoid risks. Sorry, the brick will fall on their, it's an analogy, on their head. Something that unexpected will happen because the market provides for that. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, pension reforms is a small part.
Well, but I think it needs to happen immediately as well. But as a precondition, we need to bring in the responsibility first. It might happen in one day. I mean, if the parliament votes two at the same time, why not? Because it's still going to take us time, and I think the decision must be taken now. It's going to take us a couple of years until the pension system will start picking up. Because we already have enough assets, which are few, but enough to provide for initial investment into some fixed income, some other instruments that we can use.
As most of the people know in the room, life insurance companies are usually the biggest operators of pension funds, so I can speak a little bit here from our experience, and I would divide this question into three parts. First, is the pension reform needed? Yes, it is needed. When you look at Ukraine has one of the lowest retirement ages among the European countries, definitely. And I think today for men it's 60 years. When you look at what is happening around Europe, around the world, the retirement age is being increased. Why should, or the other thing is there is a large group of privileged pensioners. So these are, I would say, the first and very important elements of the pension reform, which can be done today. It will definitely lower the cost of the pension fund and the drain of the state budget, which is also very important. It will increase also the number of contributors to the system. So from that perspective, of course, the other thing is, the cost of the pension, current pension system. Is it something that is working efficiently, or can it be, also economized in a way? The other part of the question is Pillar 2, and is Pillar 2 the answer? And in all the discussions about the reform of the pension system, this Pillar 2 pops up. I would challenge if this is a real solution, and the question would be, why challenge this is the following. Pillar 2 reform, the way it's been done, for example, in Poland, in Hungary, also in Romania, is that it doesn't solve your short-term problem, it creates long-term challenges. It takes the money away from the pay-as-you-go system, and it only will limit your liabilities 20, 30 years down the road. So you need to think, and this is also the reason why we can say second pillar is failing in Poland. There was no strategy for the 20, 30-year financing of the gap. The third thing is infrastructure for the pension reform, if somebody wants foreign investors or professional investors to be a part. When we have discussions among, with the regulator and within the life insurance industry, let's say, always my response to pension reform is this is not our priority. If the pension reform is implemented or enacted today, MetLife would not participate because there is nothing to do with the money. There's simply nothing to do with the money, and no responsible investor, no responsible fund manager would ever enter this business until we have very clear, very transparent, very honest, investment environment. So, for me, pension reform is a necessity because of the cost to the budget. But for solutions, maybe we should look somewhere else. What Gregory said, I think, also in terms of creating a demand side. I was just this morning looking at a draft plan that is being developed in Poland, and not being a big fan of the current government, I really appreciate this plan, and I think that it could be something to look at for Ukraine. And increase the investor base, or help allow increase the investor base.
Gregory, do you have a similar view in terms of reform and Pillar 2 being the answer, or being seen to be the answer to something when maybe it's not at this point? What's your view?
From the most simple, I would say, ways to initiate development, and which is needed not from the financial side point of view, because we're all the consumers of this capital, by the way. We are all representative of the financial institution. In terms of the society, because let's look at the, I would say, wages, salaries, and the pension side. So we see, and it's a lot of debated. So it's needed not from the, I would say, financial sector point of view. It's needed to balance the budget. So that's one story. And this is the most, I would say, required to quickly relaunch the system, because we do not have any other resources to relaunch this business in the short term. And yes, it is debated heavily because there are not many. If we look at the examples outside Ukraine in terms of the second pillar reform, there are many positives examples. There are some negative. In most cases, negative are taken as an example, but it's not the right story here. But there's also an evidence that we all the time discuss the negatives, and that's good, because we can see that, I would say, what is the negative sides of that, what we don't need to do. But there are many positives. it's still a young baby, I would say, second pillar reform, because even those who launch it like Polish market, which launched like decades ago, it's still far away from the analysis of the impact of that. But we definitely see the positives that it balances, I would say, the income of the pensioners. That's the only alternative in the current environment. So yes, we need it. Yes, it helps us to relaunch the, I would say, the business. And we need for that to develop, I would say, the infrastructure. But answering the questions, we do have it already. Yes, if we don't have that, as I mentioned already, positive examples, we stick to the negative. Yes, from the regulating points of view, I do understand. I say that we have more negatives in environment, but to do business here in Ukraine, we need to feel comfortable. As a representative of the business, international business, we want to feel comfortable in front of, I would say, inspections, authorities. We need to, we all the time feeling and afraid that we don't know thoughts. Yes, we cannot know everything, especially in regulation. We need to change the attitude of the regulative bodies from the punishment to the advisory approach. Otherwise, we all the time will be in a position that meeting someone, we are in a position to be afraid of working with breaching something. And this has put us in a weak position as a business representative. Are you comfortable with tax inspections here, representatives? Can you raise a hand that some of us are happy with this communication? 1, 2, out of 400. That's not an environment where we feel comfortable. And that's a major problem here. We need to have clear, transparent rules and procedures to be comfortable in. That's it. I don't want to see this representative completely. I want just to submit this report, and if I don't know something, I want to have the advisory services. That's it.
Thank you. So I think I'm going to switch gears a little bit and move from away a little bit from regulation. Oh, did you want to? Sorry.
No, sorry. Rory touched a very sensitive point, which I 100% support. But I would like to reiterate once again, so everybody has a clear understanding.
Sure.
We're talking about the regulation in terms of the examinations and inspections of the. Once again, it's not something that we would like to do or would not like to do. Unfortunately, this style of enforcement, so-called, in Ukraine, same would apply to fiscal services. It's in the law. If I don't behave like this, the prosecutor will sue me. I have to go and fix every single comma in your documentation because it's a fact. The wrongdoing of any entity in the financial sector is a fact. It's not something that I have to prove. You see, so the bar is very low. We try to change it. What it means in the European way, it means that I would have a professional judgment to say, is it a systemic problem that needs to be resolved or not? In our legal system, it's actually corruption. The law, the legislators are not allowed, they're not providing us with the discretion, with a professional judgment. Because in this case, yes, we need to go to the market participants, perform examination, identify the weaknesses, and leave them with a report to fix it. If we see that in 6 months and a year they don't fix it, and they see that this is a conscious decision not to do it, that would lead to certain offense, then we need to have a big stick. You know, we call it a cult. Yeah? Do you think that the market wants us to have a cult? No. Sorry, that's both ends of this problem. Every regulator needs to have investigative powers. That's actually, everybody in Europe has it, except Ukraine. We are the only country in Europe that hasn't signed the Kyoto Memorandum of Understanding. We are not allowed to get to the banking information. We're not allowed to perform investigation powers, and this is not the criminal investigation. This is just data collection from different sources. So, sorry, let's not be very, biased on one side. Let's consider what's the way to fix it. And fixing it, it's a very serious issue with which we need to understand. Do you have enough trust in the regulator that you would allow him to carry this stick around? If not, sorry, your market will be spoiled by the wrongdoers who came here to profit from this, because it's still profitable to do abuse.
Yeah, so what is that lack of trust and power of the regulator doing to well?
That's a serious decision for the global. But our market is very immature.
Okay, and I'd like to bring in Dan's point, move a little bit away from regulation and really talk to your background and experience on the private equity side as well. So we've talked a lot about securities markets, we've looked at stocks and bonds, but I guess close to my eye is alternative investments. Coming from more hedge fund background, so I know you've got more experience in the private equity side, but in terms of looking at the alternative investment space within the Ukraine, do you think there's any areas of attractiveness for investors, whether you look at distressed assets, looking at potential land, and I guess hearing earlier maybe there needs to be some land reform put in place for that to happen, real estate assets, and so on. Is there any areas that you see particularly attractive at this point and maybe going forward?
I wouldn't necessarily call them alternative assets. Excuse me. I think that every asset that you mentioned is an investable grade asset. To me, alternative assets are a coin collection, or a cognac collection, or a cigar, right? So when we're talking about real estate, we're talking about agriculture, when we're talking about transportation, these are real sector investments. And perhaps you and I are looking at alternative investment universe wrongly. What I wanted to mention is that right now there's no debt being issued in this country for a number of reasons. I think that you know better than I do. I believe that based on the previous markets, what usually happens is first the foreigners come in to do private equity and strategic deals. The exit can be done through a public offering. Once the foreigners come in, the local population will eventually start investing as well, because they will have some confidence. They will see the press, like you mentioned, the news and so on and so on. But you cannot make the general population invest their money in a market which right now, it's not the market that's broken, it's the product that's broken. The easiest way I can explain this is that you have a store called Ukraine. And this store initially attracted many buyers. The problem, everybody that bought something at the store left unhappy, right? Either the milk was bad or this or this. So the problem is not really the store's fault, it's the store of the products that they were offering. Now, I don't know in the public, in the public capital markets what the current problems are, and I don't claim to know them, but you need to offer a product that investors will want. And that's the only thing that'll bring them here. And once these investors come in, others will follow, right? So I'm glad we finished on the regulation. Now, in terms of alternative assets, so I have heard many success stories over the past 10 days here. I was having dinner yesterday with guys that have a 2,000-person game design studio in Kherson. And I have these guys that are successful in transportation, this and this and this. There's many private investments that are made in this country which are doing extremely well. And I know that this country is developing as an IT center because of the high skill, low labor costs. All of that's happening. I know there's a lot of agricultural interest because the land is excellent for the use. I know the yields are increasing. I know you're a net exporter of grain and chickens and pigs, but you are still very short on cows and the milk. So all of that's going to change because there are corporations which are looking for these types of deals to come in here and to operate because this is overall a favorable environment. The reason it's not favorable all the way around is because you still have these issues that are left over from the old Ukrainian regime, and you have not done the one thing which helped Georgia become a success story, and that is lustration. And if you were to publicly lustrate, let's say not 10% of the judges, what Suffice really did, but like 1,000 publicly, that would have a tremendous impact on lowering corruption in this country, right? One of the things I suggested is creating an 800, creating one number to report all corruption issues. Now, here's the thing, you have a guy sitting in Zhytomyr, and people complain 10 times, ooh, he gets an investigation. We're not investigated already, but whoever gets the most complaints. There's ways of fighting corruption. Other countries have had this experience. It's just the political will of doing it. It's fighting corruption, and it's having a show trial of people that need to be removed and arrested and put away, so that the rest of the country sees yes, we're serious. Hasn't been done. And that's what we need for investment, for proper investment climate. Now, I'm coming here, and I know that I'm like naive deer in the headlights, and I'm looking around and seeing everything, but I'm hoping that through the US government influence, I would be able to avoid all the issues that normal investors are encountering, right? So I'm hoping I'm not gonna have to pay any money under the table, or around the table, or above the table. I want everything legally, because I'm the one that contributed to the negative that plagued this country for all this time. It seems to me that people don't want to contribute either, but sometimes they have no choice. Right? So, back to the alternative investments. Yes, there are plants that can be bought and retooled. I'll give you an example. A tire plant that's making terrible tires. Find an investor, find a strategic guy who wants to make tires, sell them in Eastern Europe, tax-free, saving the labor citizens. There's many opportunities here. One of the things I'm looking at is I'm looking for real estate properties, 1 million to 50 million, that will yield us a 15% net. And that's how we're marketing a fixed income investment. Show us a shopping mall or an apartment building where we can invest and it will have a net yield of 15%. Why net yield of 15%? Because that's what the investors want today for the Ukrainian risk. In my other transactions, the internal rate of return, the desired internal rate of return is higher. But so far, everybody got so burned in Ukraine, like I said. The guys that invested before Maidan, they don't really want to come back. So we're looking at new investors and trying to sell the idea that this is a new country. It's really changed. It's probably changed more after Maidan than it did after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So, again, perhaps I'm naive, perhaps I'm wrong, but this is how I see it, and I'm very optimistic long term, provided that the direction continues and there is not going to be return to the old ways, which some people want in this country.
Thank you. I'm actually coming close to time, so I think so we keep on schedule, and so we keep everyone's stomachs happy for lunch coming up at 1 o'clock. If I can go to the audience, if there are any questions. Again, there's a microphone. The gentleman's doing it again.
Is there a microphone?
У мене запитання. Ви сказали, що відсутня довіра до регулятора, пане Тимуре. Ви зазначили. Скажіть, будь ласка, ваше бачення, яким чином або який потрібен механізм створити або, можливо, вдосконалити для того, щоб повернути довіру до регулятора? Дякую.
Дякую вам за запитання. Я не мав на увазі до якогось конкретного регулятора. Я мав на увазі до державних установ. Повертати справами і тільки, але не справами такими, які сподобаються одним, а не сподобаються іншим. Мабуть, всі не будемо. Багато що ми робимо, це не сподобається всім. Тому що нам потрібно змінити багато того, к чому ми звикли. Тому тільки справами, а потім ми будемо спостерігати на ефекти, які ці справи нам надають. Якісні закони, якісні рішення до проблем. Пробачте, я, мабуть, дуже багато про проблеми говорив, але я вважаю, що це частина рішення. Тому якщо ми будемо говорити про проблеми, такі, які вони є, і приймати системне рішення щодо унеможливлення повторення цих проблем. Тому це буде часть нашого великого майбутнього в фінансовому секторі. І тоді інвестори реально будуть приходити і відчувати якість нашого ринку, і якість, і рівень, і культуру фінансового сектору. Якщо я вам відповів на це. Дякую.
The next question, please. Yeah.
Dmitro Hanchishin, I have a question to Timur actually. So I happen to work for an organization who's got a purpose, to build trust in society and solve important issues. And you happen, during this panel, you talked a lot about trust, like yourself, Grigory, Dan. During an earlier session, also Yulia Kovalyev, Dan Miller, they spoke about, deregulation, transparency, and the bright guys sitting, at this panel, you look to me as if you are, having these, your hands are tied, and you sort of refer, there are these villains in the parliament. There's law, my hands are tied, I cannot do anything about it. So my question to you is, maybe we should, stop wasting our time sitting here talking about what we have to do, because we know what we have to do. We talk common sense and start working about, let's get the right people in the parliament. Maybe that's the solution to this question.
Well, thank you very much for your question. I mean, I like uncomfortable questions. That's the way we're trying to move forward by putting out very uncomfortable questions to everybody. But I would just say that parliamentarians are the ones to blame. I think every starts from a simple bureaucrat in each office. With the reforms in the last 2-3 years, you see that it's been very hard to fight corruption and any other problems that we have. It's still there. The problems are there. The fact is, the European direction puts the responsibility on each bureaucrat that takes a decision. We got away from the system where we have a guy sitting on the top of a hill and telling everybody what to do. Now we're taking, we pass all the sticks, to the society, so-called. But society needs to go up and understand that you shouldn't blame one and wait till we change the parliament. I agree, there's so many problems, and if we wouldn't like to also solve solutions and maybe smaller problems with our own institution, we wouldn't be here. So yes, we're like fixing the plane while we're flying, but this is the fact, and we shouldn't also underestimate the necessity to work with parliamentarians. It's not only to blame, it's a very easy solution. Let's blame him. He's probably corrupt. Okay, but maybe he doesn't understand. Nobody in this country took serious financial sector. Really. We've been so oriented for the banking sector that actually, we built a huge wall around the banking sector trying to preserve it from all of the risk of the country. And now we're having a big problem because the banking sector cannot lend over the wall. How do you act in a hostile environment, economic environment? It's impossible. So let's try to change everybody. And we're spending a lot of time, for instance, with our derivatives and regulated markets legislation, which actually pushes forward very important concepts of the MiFID regulation in the European Union, of EMIR regulation on infrastructure in the European Union, and other regulations. It took us almost a year to persuade, how am I going to explain central counterparty functioning, which we put in the law to the legislature. It's challenging. And without the central counterparty, we have a problem, operating the market. So it's easy to blame. But look, at least we don't want to walk away and say, well, need to drop it because the others, have failed to do something. So we keep on, pili and bili, господа. Может, они не сделали. But we believe, that these dumbbells are both energy. You're welcome. Yeah, thanks.
I would like also to add, if I may. I think that what is important. When I was briefing for this conference, if I were to conclude this with one sentence, I would say something following. We should all realize here, Ukraine should realize that investors can live without Ukraine, Ukraine cannot live without investors. In order for investors to come here, you have to create environment. Of course, there will be, as mentioned, classes of investors that, come, take their reward and disappear. But this is not the kind of investor you are looking for. So if you want to have investors like MetLife, which has been here for 14 years already and doesn't, for the moment, plan to exit, you have to listen to their needs and listen to their problems, and then again try to find a way to transform those into reality. It's not about we are sitting here not saying we cannot do nothing, because we do a lot. Yeah, we do. We work, we make money, we give jobs, we do everything. But how many investors so persistent, so stubborn to stay here? You want more of them, change it. And we cannot change it. I cannot change the law. I cannot create the environment for the stock exchange to flourish. By the way, I was looking yesterday, VIG index in Warsaw. VIG Ukraine is X hundred times bigger than, or the cap and turnover than here. So things can be done, but without the cooperation, without the vision, without the country strategy, we will be still sitting here, and saying what is ailing us. We will go back and like animals adjust, to the environment and stay here as long as our shareholders are happy and patient. But as I said also earlier, we are not the key drivers of the change. We will contribute, we will cooperate, we will support, we can share know-how, experience, but the impulse should come from where we're pointing.
But we have the plan. We have a reform plan, which is very challenging, to implement. The 5-year financial reform plan, if anybody, I think we've talked a lot about this. It's a very, it's groundbreaking, it's revolutionary, and we put everything we could. But when we started to write it, and then a year and a half since, we understand that we underestimated, the inherited problems. Yeah. We cannot lay and build a good house on the, so we need to take apart fast the old house and build a new one. So once again, I'm very sorry, talking about, and I'm sure you get frustrated about regulation stuff, but not to put it on the sad note. We're optimistic. I think Ukraine is in a great position, because we're in the back seat of the financial development globally. It's a great opportunity at this stage to get the benefits of the technology revolution in the financial sector. All the, cyber and blockchain and all that distributed ledger thing, it's a great opportunity that we can just take and use it here. Once again, the world is going through the big change, and Ukraine shouldn't just take and look, underneath our feet. We should look a little bit further, and I think we're doing it. So there's change. We have new investors coming, right?
We haven't made any investments yet. We're still looking.
Well, you sound like you're going to make it. So.
I guess to get your point again, it's not just one person's responsibility. It was easy during the financial crisis to point to regulator, point to government, but everyone was involved.
Yeah, we all.
You've got to take responsibility. Everyone's going to take responsibility for their actions and how they acted in the local marketplace, their local economies. Sure. One more question. One more question, if you've got it. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Sam, representing the financial sector. My question will be to Timur. Just to wrap it up.
I'm sorry.
This is a little difficult. But at the beginning, you just mentioned that we have recurring crisis in the world, in Ukraine, and the crisis repeats every 5 years. So my calculation would be 2008, 2013. The next one will be coming 2018. Do you have any triggers for this crisis? And what are the remedies and the recommendations for Ukraine? How to avoid it or to pass it through with minimum losses? We are anyway putting down. Thank you.
So, sorry, I didn't have my crystal ball. This pattern has been broken, so don't quote on me. No, I think that we cannot. We cannot fall any lower. The country doesn't have resistance anymore. So we're really in the last kind of stage. Any other crisis will just kill us. I mean, that's a. I think it's, but however, it's a very low point, as I said before. There's only upside. Yeah, the low side. I mean, come on. I can go into the financial terms, but I don't think it would be politically correct. But so it's only an upside, and I think you know, if this pattern would be broken, I wouldn't be sitting here. So I think we're all doing a great job. You know, we all believe in Ukraine, and I think the sense that I get it from the audience and from my colleagues here, you know, it's a great opportunity, and it's tough, but I'm sure for us, we, you know, right now we're quite low not to feel the crises around us, but we need to, you know, put the pipes, you know, do the plumbing, build the infrastructure, pave, you know, roads, and we can get the benefits of the forthcoming, you know, industrial, financial revolution that are coming globally. So I think that's, you know, I'd like to end on a positive note.
Thank you. And I guess we could have gone for much longer. The topics went just all over the place, but actually it's a common thread that we hear in terms of fintech technology being used as an innovative tool in a positive way. So we've been talking this morning about shining the light in dark corners and so on in terms of covering certain activities. Then actually technology is a great way to do that, a great export commodity that you can have. So with that, I'd really like to thank our panelists and who'll be here over lunch, I think, as well. And as I mentioned again, Dan, with his previous experience with the US presidential campaign, will be all ears for questions as well. You can eat. So with that, I'd like to pass back to Anna, who will take you through the voting again.
Yes, thank you. Just, quick voting before the lunch break. So I will repeat the question, which was asked at the beginning of the panel. In your opinion, what is the most needed reform to boost local securities market? And the proposed answers are A, introduction of the second pillar of the pension system. This topic was quite extensively discussed during the panels. And B, capital markets reform in line with the EU and international norms. C, change of the government borrowing policy. And D, reforms to improve business climate and stimulate structural changes of the economy. Thank you. So again, I mean, no significant changes, I think, to the original results, but you will all, I think, agree that definitely there is no single right answer to this question. So thank you, and I'm pleased to announce the lunch break. It will be served. The lunch is served outside the conference hall, and we will reconvene with our panel 3 at 2 p.m.
My name is Kisha Lalo. I'm from Quebec City in Canada. I worked in the bank as an investment advisor. I really love the IT aspect.